Um, all right, so let's just put these four together again. We've got Galileo, who has a certain problem with the church in his era, and finally gets an apology 300 and whatever it was years later. We have Newton, who's actually reading deeply in and sort of in a sort of a mystical realm of Bible, searching for biblical translations and so on. Einstein, who had quite a lot of things to say about religion, and the believing in Spinoza's God of the universe. Who was your fourth one? Darwin, who was originally going into the church. So there's this throughout the history of science, and up to the present day, of course, there is this this conflict going on. You have written quite extensively on these issues. I have a review that you did of Darwin's Black Box, which is by Michael Behe, who is a proponent of intelligent design. And this is obviously a very harsh review. You obviously don't think that there's much to these things. It says here, with hard work and even the possibility of progress dismissed, Dr. Behe waves his magic wand, discards the scientific method, and launches into his philosopher's stone of a universal explanation. It was all designed, presenting the silly, lazy, ignorant, and intellectually abominable view, essentially discarding reason and invoking that first resort of the intellectually challenged, that is, God. He presents what he thinks is the most wondrous of theories, that the only way of achieving complexity is by design. You obviously have some fairly strong opinions about this.
Sounds like it, doesn't it?
It does, doesn't it? And a lot of people, in fact, would agree with on this. What's your current position on all these things?
Well, that intelligent design is an abomination. It is it's a representation of intellectual laziness driven by the desire to turn this country and as many other countries as possible into a theocracy. It's quite deplorable, and it is so alien to the scientific spirit of giving a non-explanation, and also, of course, which is another strand of the intelligent designer's approach to these things, misrepresenting results. It is a scientific abomination, and really, I think people who value the power of the human intellect should ensure that our children are not contaminated by this extraordinarily seductive, lazy abomination.
The laziness thing turns up in other things that you've written again. And I think that this seems to be a theme that you're just really, if I may say so, irritated by people just not applying the appropriate tools to examination of this problem.
Exactly. I mean, people give in at the first fence in intelligent design. They say, this can't ever have evolved under the pressures of natural selection. What they really mean is that we're too stupid or too lazy to think of how it might have come about. There is nothing in the biosphere that, in principle, cannot be understood in terms of evolution. But science is hard work, and scientists really have to struggle. Scientists aren't sliding downhill on toboggans. They're actually climbing mountain peaks. And while all these intelligent designers are tobogganing down, because it's a nice, easy way of going places, we scientists are really struggling to reach true understanding. And it's terribly hard work, but at the same time terribly rewarding by the time you get to the summit.
So here's another passage from the, there's a the Templeton organisation currently has a website where it's a number of people who give their opinions to responses to the question, does the universe have a purpose? And at the end of yours, which you start, and your answer is no. You should say, we should not regard as great the questions that have been invented solely for the sake of eliciting puzzlement. I regard the existence of this extraordinary universe as having a wonderful, awesome grandeur. It hangs there in all its glory, wholly and completely useless. To project onto it our human-inspired notion of purpose would, to my mind, sully and diminish it.
Yeah, I wrote that. I'd forgotten I'd written it. I'm glad I did. It sounds rather good the way you read it as well. And I believe every word of it. I think a lot of theology is grappling with phantoms. So theologians have invented this almost self-consistent subject, which has no contact with physical reality at all. And they invent all sorts of questions which they then taunt humanity with. One of them is cosmic purpose. And they say, there must be a purpose. You and your science can't explain it. And typical of theologians, they don't respect the power of the human intellect anyway. And they infer that no one will ever understand it. It is ineffable. God's purpose cannot be discerned. And of course that's, those are fine words, but utterly meaningless. I mean, there's not... Why should the thing have a purpose? They've invented this question in order to taunt us. And most of the questions that theology grapples with, like theodicy, problem of evil, are purely invented and for the amusement of theologians. If they would admit that what they're doing is playing some huge game of Trivial Pursuit, then it'd be great. We could watch them. They could have a good belly laugh about some of the answers they've come up with. But they're not real questions. I could, for example, propose that there's a belt of planets between Mars and the Earth, which has no effect upon the orbits of the known planets. And there'll be a great deal of scholarly discussion based on why these planets have no effect on the other planets and so on. It would be a perfectly amusing question for after dinner gossip, but not really for serious consideration.